Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. We're here today, episode 2406. Today's show is going to be all about, you probably heard it by now, the new food scoring system. This is over 3-year based study out of Tufts University School of Nutrition on over 8,000 foods with 54 different parameters, and all these foods went into in order to be able to score each food. 1 being the worst and basically 100 being the best. They looked at 8,000 plus foods and they then gave them a score. Well, what's all the to-do? The scoring system is some of the most detrimental and bad food advice you've probably seen in a long, long time. Here's the issue, though. The majority of Americans, and unfortunately this will affect the entire world, are going to see this and believe that, if this was done by doctors of nutrition and health out of a prestigious school like Tufts University in my hometown of Medford, Massachusetts, right beside Medford, Massachusetts, then this is obviously the so-called end-all be-all of nutrition. This is the pinnacle of research-based study and computer-based algorithms in order to assess what the best foods are there out there for our health. And when I first saw this come out, I said, no, this is not going to take traction. This is just another study completely out of control because it came out a while ago. But then it resurfaced with the Daily Mail-based website article on it. Now, I'll link up the Daily Mail's Daily Mail, it's MAIL website. It's not a website that I typically go to. And I've never seen more advertising on one web page. It's so hard to follow the article. I mean, there has to be 1,000 advertisements on this one web page. But if you can make it through the article, it actually has... It's not biased. It's not pushed to one side. And they give you a fairly good breakdown, not the best breakdown because there's 8,000 foods, of course, but right away they show you like first graphic, this is it. And again, I am going to pull this full circle at the end because it's so important. It really is. It's so important now more than ever that you do not fall for all of this big food and big pharma-based propaganda. You might say, how does pharmaceuticals play into food? I'll share with you how that happens. So let's look at this. All right. The first image that hits you with this article is the point scoring system. And it says, okay, the first one in meat and cheese egg omelet is 26 points. Okay. So essentially anything under 39 points is bad. Anything above 69 or 70 points is good. The stuff in the middle is just moderate. So basically, never eat an omelet. That's what it's saying, okay? Now, I'll give you a little bit of color as to why they're giving these specific parameters in just a moment, but I want to go through the graphic. Okay, a glass of milk is 50 points. So just regular old cow's milk with recombinant bovine growth hormone and estrogens and all sorts of inflammatory-based components, 50 points. All right, multi-seed bread, 32 points. So not as good as milk, apparently, but better than an omelet. All right, 11 points for couscous. So a traditional grain served for thousands of years, it only gets 11 points. That means basically it's poison. A granola bar with oats in it and other nutrients, I guess, is 15 points. So again, poison. But an ice cream cone, so a cone of chocolate ice cream and an ice cream cone gets 35 points. So 35 points. So ice cream and a sugar cone gets more points than multi-grain bread and couscous and a granola bar. So what are you to think? Well, eat more ice cream, right? Bacon's 29 points. So the ice cream cone and the sugar cone is better than the bacon. Now, here's where it starts to get a little wild. Cheerios is 91 points. There's almost no foods better than Cheerios on this list. Honey Nut Cheerios considered almost the gold standard for breakfast, according to this list. Pretty hard to believe, right? That a processed food with enriched base nutrients and, to my knowledge, could be tainted with lots of glyphosate is 91 points. And here's the real kicker. 65 points, meaning like this is good to eat. Fast food pancakes. Legitimately says that. Fast food pancakes. 65 points. Better breakfast than an omelet. Now, again, am I telling you to eat an omelet every day? You know that I'm not, right? You know that from all my 2,405 previous podcasts. I'm not saying to wake up and have an omelet every day. If you're going to have an omelet, you're going to eat your eggs, I would just highly recommend, your ApoE genotype, and I would simply recommend that you run an IgG food sensitivity test to see if you have what's considered the third most common IgG sensitivity, which is egg whites, okay? So I just want to share that with you. But again, am I going to say in any way, shape, or form that fast food pancakes are better than an omelet? No, not in any reality. Am I going to say that fast food pancakes are better than couscous? No. How about better than a granola bar? No. How about better than a multi-seed, multi-grain bread? The answer is no, right? So like in I don't know what world we live in, that fast food pancakes are actually now an optimal choice being recommended to people. Hey, and if you can't do fast food pancakes, just have a bowl of Cheerios. So pretty wild that is what we're looking at for the overall first graphic. And that's just the first graphic. There are 8,000 plus foods assessed. I'm going to link you directly up to it's called Food Compass. That's the actual name of the program. So Food Compass is a nutrient profiling system using expanded characteristics for assessing healthfulness of food. So they're literally assessing the health of food, and they're telling you that Cheerios and pancakes are two of the best for breakfast. Not just pancakes, but fast food pancakes. Okay, so I'm going to give you 54 attributes along 9 relevant domains is how they looked at this. Nutrient ratios, vitamins, minerals, food ingredients, additives, processing, specific lipids, by that they mean saturated fats, fiber, protein, and phytochemicals. So 1 is the least healthy, 10 is the most healthy of all foods and beverages they looked at, and the exact number of foods was 8,032. So the first thing that I do is I say, okay, who funded this study? Because these are doctors, like these are smart people, right? The problem is smart people sometimes give bad answers and they do bad science. And the reason why this happens is that they are only pulling from a knowledge base that they've been taught. So you have to understand the conventional medicine world looks at everything from a reductionist approach. And that's the main topic of today's podcast. The main topic is to share with you that this is bad science. But the real underlying fundamental principle that I'm trying to share with you right now, if we look at fundamental principles, if we're looking at first principles, it is you can only teach from the knowledge base you have. And if you're only willing to look at things one way in life, you have a very slanted view of what you can actually see from reality, right? So you're looking through these blinders, you cannot see all the other things that exist. And in conventional medicine, what do? We look at things in a reductionist-based approach. Not me, but they. So what does that mean? Well, everything is either essentially good or bad and broken down to just specific nutrients. So all they're looking at is carbs, proteins, fibers. They're looking at saturated fats. They're not looking at, hey, is this food natural? No, they're breaking it down to what's an potential effect on glycemic load. Like they're actually saying white rice is not as good as these processed grains because the processed grains would cause less of a glucose spike in some areas because they might be enriched with whatever. Okay, well, the problem is almost nobody sits down to a bowl of just white rice. Now, there are people all over the world, and I've been there as well in India, that may just have a bowl of white rice. Totally understand that. This is not, and we all know that this is not what we're talking about with this study. They're going through 8,000 different foods. Do you think someone sitting down to a single bowl of white rice has access to 8,000 foods? Most likely not. So what we're talking about is that white rice is being mixed with what? Well, it's being mixed with protein, it's being mixed with fats, it's being mixed with all sorts of different herbs. It's slowing the glycemic response of that white rice. So again, but in a reductionist viewpoint, all you look at is the single glycemic index and saying, oh, this food has this particular glycemic index. Well, the glycemic index was created by testing college males with each food done just by itself on an empty stomach with only that one food and seeing how the body would respond. Nobody eats like that. I mean, like almost nobody eats like that. They have a meal, and the meal then changes the glycemic index and also what's called the glycemic load of a meal, right? Which can dramatically change things as well when you look at it. Okay, so I'm finding the research right now, and because I know who it was funded by, because it was done in conjunction with the NIH, but also let's see here. Well, I'll grab it for you. And what I'm actually going to do is just make sure that I post it for you as well. So go to stephencabral.com/2406, and it will give you exactly who the partnerships were. Like, for example, this particular partnership was done with the Food Price. So food-price, it's food policy review and intervention cost effectiveness. So what are they really looking to do? Again, like what's all of this really mean? Here's what it means. It's normalizing processed fake food. That's what it's really trying to do, right? So these are essentially doctors that were paid through grants and more, and probably tenure at their university. And again, I'm not saying that all professors are bad and all these things. These are not bad people, I'm sure. This is bad research. This is going to affect generations to come unless we do something about it. You cannot tell people that eating Cheerios, and I wanted to share with you just a couple more. So, because you might say, oh, you're making a big deal about just one or two. Okay. Here are some foods that got high ratings. French fries got a 69. So it's on a list of things that you could eat on a daily basis that would be healthy for you. They're considering French fries, which they, by the way, they refer to it in the study as chips. Do not be fooled by this. Chips means French fries in the study. So like fish and chips, that's what they mean by it. Okay, these are fried in oil. But since they consider things like canola oil, even if it's genetically modified, to be a healthier oil because it's low in saturated fat, they consider it not so bad of a food. Now, again, do they look into trans fats? Do they look into oxidization of these particular fats? Do they look at free radical damage? They don't. That's the problem, right? It's a reductionist viewpoint. Here's some other wild ones. Lucky Charms, 60 points. Guess what else is basically 60 points? A skinless chicken breast. So Lucky Charms is the equivalent essentially to a skinless chicken breast. Skinless chicken breast is only 1 more point extra, 60 and 61. It's pretty wild. I mean, again, like let's think about this. You've got artificial colors, artificial flavors, processed cereal, or a skinless chicken breast. Those are your two options, but they're equal in this. Do you see how this is going to hurt children and future generations to come? It's completely insane. Let me just give you a couple more, just, and then we'll move off of it because there's only so much ranting I can do. All right. So we've got Honey Nut Cheerios at a 76. Orange juice, not an orange, but orange juice at a 78. Chocolate covered almonds as a 78. These are like the best foods for you, right? Not almonds. Why can't we just do almonds? Can we do almonds? It has to be chocolate covered. Non-fat frozen yogurt is an 80. Now, here's some pretty wild ones, and this image is actually cut off. But almost 90 points, frosted mini wheats. It's one of the top things that you can eat is frosted mini wheats. And isn't it amazing, though, that companies that make things like Cheerios and some frozen yogurt and ice cream and frosted mini wheats actually get their name in print as some of the healthiest foods that you can eat. To me, not only is this a travesty, but this is an abomination of real science. This is not real science. This is a reductionist viewpoint. This is hurting people. This is actually going to cause more of the top 4 causes of mortality. You know, I've done many shows on what leads to an early death. Here's what leads to an early death, right? It's cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and cancer. Processed foods and all these artificial colors and ingredients all contribute to inflammation in the body, which then shows up as cardiovascular, blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. And what we've essentially done now is keep the pharmaceutical business in play for years and years to come. You have to understand that this is all connected. This is no conspiracy theory. There's nothing like that. There's no profiteering for me to be sharing with you. It's this. If you keep people sick through the foods that they eat and the fare that they experience over and over in life, you're going to lead to disease. That disease is going to happen younger and younger in children. And now we get Big Pharma profiting from a younger age. For now, about 1/3 of all children are overweight. 2/3 of all adults are overweight. And it's leading to basically 1 in 2 or 3 for cardiovascular, blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and cancer as well. There's not a mystery as to how these things appear. Doctors can blame it on genetics over and over. I'm telling you right now, your genetics have been the same since you were born. What happens is the expression of those genes. If you fill up your rain barrel with toxic foods, amongst other things, toxic environments that we live in, toxic mindset, then you are going to end up in a dis-ease of the body, an imbalanced body. When you have those things, you'll be diagnosed with a disease. You'll be put on pharmaceuticals with no hope of ever getting off of them unless you begin to change the diet, exercise, stress reduction, tox removal, rest, emotional balance, science-backed nutritional supplements, and a success mindset, right? The de-stress protocol that I write about in the Rain Barrel Effect. The information's free. I have 2,505 free podcasts before this one. And all I'm trying to do, and I hope that all of my fellow health practitioners out there and health coaches and integrative health practitioners will get the word out that this is just wrong. It should be illegal. And I can't believe that taxpayer money and just, you can obviously tell the ties to private companies have been locked in with science. This really is disingenuous, and it gets me to doubt a lot of the so-called published science that continues to come out. It's so swayed clearly in one direction, and all they had to do was really begin to look at what whole foods should be ranked top to bottom rather than what processed foods. But these processed foods that man-made, that are laden with chemicals, and we know linked to disease, are obviously far worse than a lot of these whole foods, yet it puts them and pits them above all the others. So my goal with today is for you to share this information, again, with as many people as you can. Get the word out that this is not legitimate science, that this is something that should be completely abandoned. It doesn't matter that it took 3 years of work. Get rid of the whole thing. Don't look at it. And if you want the simplest ways to eat possible, you can just literally tune into a show I did 2 days ago, or actually yesterday, on episode 2405. The MEP diet for lowering blood sugar and basically all other cardiovascular and other diseases. It's not my diet. I didn't make it up. It's actual science. It's real science. It's been proven now for many, many decades, and clearly a much simpler diet to follow, a healthier diet to follow, and the longest lived people are using this particular type of diet. So hopefully this has been helpful. I think I held it together. I don't think my rant was too out of control. I tried to keep it level in case you're new to this podcast. It's not typically me just ranting over and over. But again, from someone who's just lived and breathed this for 25 years and just tries to get the word out just from a grassroots level of what health truly is, this just sets us back as a health-based community for decades. But hopefully we can undo it. And the nice thing is, when you look at the comments of a lot of these posts, you know, it gives you hope again that there are people that see through this and they're trying to share it as well. So I'm only one person. You do your job. You keep sharing this information, and that's how we get things changed. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. I'll talk with you soon. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.